IVM.
News Kids on the Block. We bring to you stories that top the nation's papers, fresh from the IVM and the Assam International School Desk. Hi, I'm Kavya.
I'm Anya, and welcome back to this episode of News Kids on the Block.
Not welcome back, but yeah, welcome to this episode. Unfortunately, you will not be hearing a hi, I'm Trivik today because he is not able to join us for today's episode. So it'll just be me and Anya. And we don't have a COVID update for you today. So stay safe, stay at home, try to avoid going out right now unless it's really needed. With that, we'll move on to the first story of the day, Leonardo Dicaprio. So Leonardo DiCaprio has been a very vocal activist when it comes to the environment for the past few years. And his voice and his activism was honored when a critically endangered plant in the Igbo forest of Cameroon was named after him. It is the first plant species that was identified in 2022, known as Uvariopsis DiCaprio, which is an evergreen tree. And I think it's pretty cool. Not everyone will find it cool, but I think it's pretty cool that critically endangered plant is named after Leonardo DiCaprio.
And also something from what you just said, what I found really interesting was you said it was like an evergreen tree. So I think that, that talks about like why they've named it after him, and his work and legacy as an actor kind of goes back to evergreen. I think he has a few years more than that as an actor. But it's cool to see the impact that he's made. Our next story for you today is one of like a lot of controversy lately. And it is about the tennis player, Novak Djokovic. And basically you might have read about how he sort of in the past kind of been anti vaccine mandates, and he's been waiting on visas. But the controversy has built up because recently he admitted on an Instagram post that there was some ongoing misinformation. He's currently waiting to play the Australian Open, and the government and their courts and stuff they're threatening deporting him because he hasn't taken the vaccine. And so he had his visa, I think, revoked on like 6th January, and he thought that he would get an exemption for it, but Australia hasn't really given him one yet. But that being said, he took to Instagram a few days ago to say that he was COVID positive, and he had gone out while he was COVID positive, whereas multiple reports and journalists have said that during that time he was very openly out. And his statement was on the 12th of January, and he says, "I want to address the continuing misinformation about my activities and attendance at events in December in the lead up to my positive PCR COVID test. This is misinformation which needs to be corrected, particularly in the interest of alleviating broader concern in the community about my presence in Australia and to address matters which are very hurtful and concerning to my family." He goes on to talk about like that he has tried to like ensure the safety, and he talks about certain things that he attended like a basketball game, and he explained his feelings and so on. But he also expressed that it was an honor to play the Australian Open, and he just wants to have the opportunity to compete and to do what he does best. But it is a controversy because of him being unvaccinated, and he's not the only athlete to face that. I think in the NBA, Kyrie Irving, the Nets player, has also faced similar situations because he hasn't followed a vaccine mandate, which leads us to like this broader debate of whether or not vaccines, should be mandated. And with people like, especially with like sportsmen and sportswomen, when they're traveling for these larger international tournaments, it can be something that affects their career or their eligibility to roll into that. And I think that makes for a very interesting debate.
Yeah, I think that, obviously you're entitled to your opinion, you have the freedom to do what you want. But at the same time, I think it also is up to a country's government to make the decision on whether someone who does not abide by their rules should be allowed to a specific place, which I also think is their right to do so. So it goes both ways.
Also, I think with a lot of vaccines, since there is skepticism with vaccines, if it was a vaccine for something different, then that's a different debate. But we've seen the pandemic. We've all lived through this now for almost 2.5 years. So we've faced the adverse effects of this. Everyone knows what a big deal this is. The world has literally stopped for 2 years because the vaccine is in context of COVID. It depends on how relevant it is or it isn't, right?
Yeah. With that, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back on News Kids on the Block.
Have you ever wondered where the business world is headed? How the ways in which we create, market, and sell to consumers will evolve? Or if we'll ever go back to wearing pants while working? For answers to all of this and more, tune into Advertising is Dead with me, Varun Dugirala. Every Tuesday, as I talk to entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers from across business, media, marketing, and beyond. You can catch all episodes of Advertising is Dead on the IVM Podcasts website, app, or wherever you get your podcast from.
Welcome back to News Kids on the Block, where we bring to you all the top news stories for the week. I'm your co-host for today. If you get it, you get it. And I'll be passing it on to Kavya, who will be telling us about a very interesting medical development in the world of, medicine.
Yeah, so it was a medical first when doctors managed to transplant the heart of a pig into a human patient when they were really trying desperately to save his life in a Maryland hospital in the US. Right now, he's doing okay, but it's only 3 days after the surgery, so we won't be able to tell the long-term effects of it and whether it really does work. But even then, it does mark a big step in this quest to find out whether animal organs can really save humans and can be used in transplants to save lives. So the patient was a 57-year-old man by the name of David Bennett, and he knew that there was obviously not a guarantee that the experiment would work and not a that it was not confirmed that the experiment would work, but he was on his deathbed and literally he had no choice because he was not eligible for a human heart transplant. And I think this opens so many new doors for people like him who aren't capable of getting a human organ transplant. This really if this works, it's a really, really huge revelation for humans. There's also a huge shortage of human organs that are donated for transplants. So if we do figure out a way to use animal organs instead, it will obviously be a big discovery.
Yeah, Kavya, for sure. I think this, like you said, opens a lot of doors to medicine. See, organ transplants are something that happen because it is a matter of life and death. And if a procedure like this can be replicated to save multiple people's lives, then I think that, it is definitely a huge step in the medical world. Whether the long-term effects of that are good or not good, we'll see. But for now, it is. The next story that we have for you today is about the elections in India. So the Election Commission has announced the dates for polls in 5 states, which will be held between February 10th and March 7th. These states are Uttar Pradesh, Manipur, Punjab, Uttarakhand, and Goa. And in view of the Omicron sort of variant and all of this stuff going on around us, the Election Commission also decided that there will be no roadshow, padyatra, cycle, bike vehicle rally, or procession, basically just any kind of physical rally until January 15th, which is this Friday, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this is interesting. Recent, I think there were like 19 cases in the EC itself, and they held meetings with the Union Health Secretary and members of the COVID task force. And the EC has stressed a lot of importance on speeding up the vaccination programs, especially in the poll-bound states. This will sort of help, to ensure that people are participating in the elections and voting, but also stop the surge of COVID. The Congress decided to take a virtual campaign route. So they've created green rooms where virtual rallies will be addressed by leaders, according to India Today, being set up in 10 Janpad. And the official residence of Congress president, basically the point is that they will be setting up these green rooms where people can give their bhashans and start to look at the elections. They've also, the Punjab chief minister also just said that now, till now we were only a working government, but now we would like to start talking about the election. And the Home Minister Amit Shah appealed to people to elect a government that contributes to the progress of their state as well as their country. Also a clarification, January 15th is a Saturday. With that, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back after the break.
Hey everybody, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. On Cyrus Says, Vijay Subramaniam, founder at Collective Artists Network, talks to Cyrus about talent management in India and all there is to it. On Misconduct, Ragvi and Nisha unravel the doping allegations around various Indian athletes. On Audio Gyan, water activist S. Vishwanath shares with Kedar how wells were designed in earlier times. On The Longest Constitution, Priya tells us about the time when scores of students set themselves on fire to protest against the Mandal Commission. And on Marathi Khidki Tun, the Deshmukhs take us on a tour of public baths around the world. Do follow us on social media. We're IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Also, don't forget to rate us on any of the platforms you're listening to us on. And you can also check us out on YouTube. You can have a list of all of our shows at ivmpodcast.com/YouTube. And finally, we'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Bank of Baroda and CoinSwitch Kuber.
Welcome back. You're listening to News Kids on the Block. I'm your co-host for today, Kavya, and I will hand it over to Anya to tell us about some team selections for women's sport.
So, the point is, so this story is basically about some really interesting things that have happened in the world of women's sports, especially wherein they announced, firstly, the 23-member team for the Women's Asia Cup, which will be held across 3 venues in Maharashtra. And Ashalata Devi is most probable to be leading the team. Of course, there are also veteran players like Aditi Chauhan and Dalima Chiber who will be in the team. The Indian team currently has about 15 players who are under the age of 25, which means that we are a relatively young squad. And, the coach also said that the team is taking a 1 game at a time approach. So this is exciting and we look forward to this tournament. The other squad that was announced is the Women's Cricket World Cup 2022. Of course, it comes as no surprise that Mithali Raj will be leading the squad. They will be playing their first World Cup fixture against Pakistan on 6th March 2022 in New Zealand. And before that, they will, from 11th February, they will be playing a 5-match ODI series. They haven't really played a match since they played South Africa here. Some interesting sort of points that weren't there was Shikha Pandey and Jemima Rodriguez. She was an opener and then she played in the middle order as well, were exempted from the team list, along with Poonam Raut, who said that, it was disappointing, especially when she's performed consistently and has been a part of the team for a long time, to be left out, but she wishes the team good luck. Like I mentioned, Mithali Raj will be at the top of it. The vice captain, Harmanpreet Kaur, will be there. Our opener, Smriti Mandhana, and the love of my life, Shafali Verma, as well as, of course, Jhulan Goswami. So it'll be, and of course, like all of these other players, but I think these are the ones to look out for because they've always performed. So I have a lot of hopes for India at the World Cup. I think this is it. Finally, we can do it. And yeah, Kavya, do you want to wrap it up with the last story?
Yeah, and I think it's gonna end this episode on a very high note, but also, so a thief was recently caught in Guwahati, Assam, after he took a break in the middle of a robbery to just casually stop and make himself a bowl of khichdi. According to reports, the thief started cooking at night and then his presence was found by the neighbors who alerted the police, and that is how he was caught. But I think it's just what was going through his mind? I'm here, I'm robbing, I'm stealing stuff from people, but I'm a little hungry. I'm just gonna, stop and make myself a bowl of khichdi,
And khichdi, Maggi noodles make sense.
Yeah, exactly.
Khichdi. Khichdi is not 2 minutes mein khushiyan.
You have to make the dal, you have to make the
chawal, put it all there. And ghee, you gotta put ghee on top. Where's he gonna get the ghee from?
You have to have spices and all that also. So I don't know what my guy was thinking.
I think the story is quite a bit of a khichdi, Kavya.
Yeah, and clearly not the smartest robber there is. So if you are planning to rob any houses anytime soon, do not take this guy as your inspiration.
Carry Maggi noodles instead.
Carry Maggi noodles in the bag, in your bag, exactly, your duffel bag, and you'll be ready to go.
Yeah.
That's all we have for you today. Thank you for tuning into News Kids on the Block. We will catch you next week. Hopefully Trivik is back by then. And stay safe.
If you like this episode, don't forget to check out other episodes on the IVM network. And you can stream these episodes on Spotify and the IVM website and wherever else you get your IVM podcast from. You can also follow us on socials. We are at IVM Podcasts. That's @IVM Podcast.
See, Trivik, even when you're not here, we're honoring you.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget to do your homework.
If you're a cricket fan, check out Edges and Sledges, India's favorite cricket podcast.
The podcast focuses on Indian cricket, the IPL, and has a ton of banter both on and off the field.
We talk about the week's biggest cricket stories with current and ex-international cricketers, coaches, or sometimes just between us.
And it's hosted by me, DJ.
Me, Varun.
And me, Ashwin.
New episodes release every week.
You can catch us on the IVM Podcasts website, app,
or wherever you get your podcasts from.
Check out the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast.
Eventually, you'll see the end of your childhood.
Get accustomed to womanhood.
Enjoy the experience of sisterhood.
Might get to wifehood.
Or not. Choose motherhood.
Or not. You'll learn to define your personhood.
Earn a livelihood.
Change the neighborhood.
And get rid of the falsehood that life post-academia is easy.
So join me, Natasha.
And me, Ayushi.
On a journey from station starting point.
To station, what now?
Next station, Pudin station. And hopefully, Agla station, adulthood.
Fresh episodes out every Thursday.